Hi folks, it's about 5:30 Eastern, it's about 4:30 Central on this Monday, December 17th, 2012. I'm Stephen Boyle. Well, we do have quite a bit of action going on across the mid parts of the country and also the Northeast. Now, before we move on, I know some of you are saying, well, Stephen, why weren't you posting any updates this weekend? The reason why I didn't do that is because, first of all, the models were all over the place. Didn't know where to go. As far as the forecast, I didn't feel comfortable on posting a forecast just because of the fact that they were just showing everything. So that's the first thing. That's the reason why you didn't see me post any updates. Now the second thing is because, well, I was a little on the sick side. I had a very bad cold. But I'm better now. Um, but it was mainly because of the models. Now, some of you are going to be coming up to me, maybe commenting, maybe in some other videos commenting and saying, hey, Steven, I didn't see any snow with this. You're totally wrong. I'm unsubscribing from you. You're the worst forecaster in the world. Well, let me tell you something. I understand that there was no snow with these, maybe even either with this storm and maybe even the next storm. For tomorrow. The reason why we're not seeing that snow that I was predicting is because the direction of the storm, the direction of this first storm that we're getting right now, is not moving the direction that we want to see it. We actually wanted to see it kind of curve up towards Canada so that it could bring in cooler air. That's not going to happen. What's going to happen here is it's going to happen with the second wave of energy that's going to be moving through. And we will be seeing that cooler air, but it'll be just a little too late for it. However, there is some indicators that with our Friday storm system, we could actually be seeing, particularly into interior portions of New England, and even northern New Jersey, and even New York City, could be picking up a little bit of snow. Now, the farther south you go, well, obviously the less amounts you'll get. But interior New England, particularly interior southern New England, could be getting some very good snowfall amounts with this storm for Friday, as there will be a secondary storm that will be forming. Again, exact track of that secondary storm will be very, very critical. So we'll have to see what happens here. But again, with that Thursday storm, we get some winter storm watches and blizzard watches that are out. And some areas could be picking up 8 inches of snow potentially. So be very vigilant if you live into these areas. And there's also a winter storm warning up here into parts of Maine, where they're going to be generally picking up all snow from each of these next storms. They're going to get up to 18 inches of snow. And that was actually what I was originally thinking was going to happen. But unfortunately, that colder air isn't going to come down fast enough. So most of us are going to see rain. But, it is happening in Maine, but it's not where we would like it to be. Also, tornado watches. There is a tornado watch right now going on into parts of northern Florida. Also, some severe thunderstorm watches into parts of the Ohio River Valley, particularly Kentucky and northern Tennessee. Dense fog advisories into parts of the mid-Atlantic. Be very vigilant if you're traveling into those regions, as, dense fog can be pretty nasty. Here is the teleconnections. First, we're going to start off with the PNA. That's actually expected to go neutral, if not slightly positive, which is very good for us. We're going everywhere with the AO. Some of the models are indicating, nah, this is going to go positive. Some of them are saying, nah, we're going to stay negative. So this particular time, I'm going to go with a more central-based forecast and pretty much say pretty much negative. Not severely negative with the AO, but not severely positive either. Now, NAO is a little different because some of the models are indicating that this will actually go quite positive. Not sure yet what's going to happen with that. I'm actually going a little bit more along the lines with neutral. Not sure what's going to happen with that, but again, it will be going negative, trust me. I actually think as far as teleconnections go, that's actually there's some issues going on with that. Here is the now this is the NAO mean, but what I'm seriously looking at, and even if you're looking at the NAO, you can see the euro is staying pretty negative with that. I think the euro is is doing a fairly good job with what's going on with as far as the NAO is concerned. West-based NAO is really tanking, pretty negative here, in pretty good territory. The GFS operational is actually taking this thing the highest. We don't, again, when you see the operational going against its ensembles, sometimes that means there's some issues going on. Also, as far as the EPO, this is one thing that all the models are agreeing on, is that this will be going negative. Which it's been a while since that EPO has been negative, which is very good news for us. PNA, notice how the euro, which is this blue one, goes positive, which is very good for us. We really want to see that going positive, and you can see most of the models are indicating that it will at least go fairly neutral, which is better than way negative for us. And then, of course, we talk about the AO, and again, some of the models are indicating that this will be going slightly positive, but again, from what I can see at this particular point, I think it'll generally be staying pretty much on the neutral to negative side. Here is the NAM. We're going to start off with the NAM model, and essentially the NAM is actually going to paint a very good picture for us. I'll be able to essentially explain everything I need to explain with just the NAM model alone. Essentially, there will be a few when I show you the other models, there may be some additional things I need to explain, but overall, for the most part, the NAM is pretty much the grand picture here. So here is that first low. This is our general low that is going to be moving through, and some areas will be picking up some heavier rains in the morning. However, what happens is this low actually tracks in a direction like this, which is actually good news for people who like cooler weather and don't like this very warm weather to stick around. Notice how we get actually what happens is we get a primary here and we get a secondary here, and this secondary tracks in this direction and actually brings in some of the cooler air behind it. So we actually get some cooler air pulling in. Now, some of the models are hinting that there could be some a little bit of snow shower activity into interior New England behind the secondary low pressure system. If that were to happen, it would be just very light QPF, but again, it's a possibility. Here is that second storm, and this is essentially what we really want to look at, is this storm, because the NAM is, here is our there is a potential that we will be talking about a secondary low pressure forming. If this secondary low pressure forms, first of all, here's our primary low, here's our secondary low. What would actually be happening is this could take one of two tracks. Now, based upon what I'm looking at here, it would take a track something like this. However, the GFS and Canadian are indicating something more along the lines like this. Not sure the exact track yet. However, notice how we have our secondary low starting to form here. We would be actually starting to talk about a nice up to 5 inches of snow into portions of central PA by Friday, really afternoon. By Friday evening, what I would actually expect is areas pretty much in here starting to pick up some heavier amounts of QPF. And what would actually happen is these areas would rapidly transition over to all snow, is what I would be expecting with this particular event. So therefore, and then ending off as an all snow event. Here is the Canadian, and the Canadian pretty much paints a similar picture. There's that secondary low, bringing in some of that cooler air. And then there is that main low. There is that secondary. Now, the Canadian goes quite inland with it. However, all we need, here is our secondary right in here. Primary, secondary. However, most of the energy is now transitioning, or from the primary is now pretty much pooling into that secondary. So it's transferring from the primary to the secondary. So really your secondary low becomes your primary, and your primary that you originally had is now your secondary. However, all that needs to happen is this low being a little bit more to the east. Okay, it could be here, or it could even be here. And that will make the biggest difference for people who live in here that are being shown a very high QPF. I mean, extremely high QPF. So, you know how complex of a situation this is. The track of about 100 miles, even 50 miles, will make a very big difference for people in here. So I would say be very cautious if you live really into interior New England, even northern New Jersey. And actually notice how northern New Jersey is being indicated to see up to 5 inches of snow with this as the storm exits. Now the Canadian shows everyone transitioning over to a light snow event. Actually, parts of the Boston area could be picking up to 5 inches. So between, I would say, central Massachusetts to eastern Massachusetts, 2 to 5 inches, if the Canadian was correct and were to verify. That storm would lift out, and cooler air would pretty much result as that storm would be lifting out. You can see all of this cold air just pouring into the northeast. So we get a pretty nice trough that sets up here. So expect cold air for Christmas. It's definitely not going to be a warm Christmas. Excuse me. Here is a GFS, and overall the same picture. There is that primary low. There's that secondary. That secondary is going to move up the main coast and essentially pool in some cooler air for the northeast. Then we have our first system, and again, excuse me. What's kind of interesting here is we get that storm, and what's real, like I said, it's going to be a very tricky situation because our secondary low is centered somewhere in here. All it has to do is be somewhere in here or somewhere here, and you got yourself a pretty nice snowstorm in here. So it's very, very tricky. And however, this is much cooler than what was originally being indicated by the GFS. So definitely we're starting to trend cooler. And either way, notice how the GFS paints a very similar picture as the Canadian. And notice how most of Massachusetts through southern New Hampshire and Vermont, 2 to 5 inches of snow. So we'll have to see what happens. Now, again, if we get 2 to 5 inches of snow, this would mean for many people, this would mean for a lot of people that we would be talking about a white Christmas because the air behind this low pressure system is not warm air. We're talking about cold air behind the system. So don't worry as far as that goes. Now, here is our second storm, and this is the storm that still needs a lot of tweaking. There is a potential that we get a very strong low pressure system forming. The question is how much cold air is in place? How much of a snowpack do we have? There's all of these questions. Right now, it seems like there will be a low pressure forming in here that could move up the coast like this, give interior sections starting off as a mix or some rain, transitioning over to an all-snow event. Again, a lot to look at. That's still really far out. And then by the 1st of the month of January, we may be talking about massive Arctic air. But again, that is still really, really far out. So not sure yet what's going to happen. Now, here is the Euro. And first of all, notice how this is our first system moving through. All right, so notice how we get that secondary low pressure moving up the coast of Maine. That's pretty much being indicated by every single model. Actually, it is being indicated by every single model. Cooler air pooling into the northeast. For some areas of interior New England, could be getting some leftover snow showers. We'll have to watch out for that. And then there's our second system bringing in some pretty interesting snowfall amounts. Now, the Euro paints a very different picture than the Canadian and the GFS. Now, the NAM is hinting that it's trying to collaborate with the Euro. Not sure what's going on with that. I'm not sure, but again, here's that low pressure. Now, everyone would be starting out as rain Friday afternoon, unless you live in interior Pennsylvania and interior New York. You would be talking about some rain. However, as this low pressure continues to swipe its way northward, so would the 540 line. So notice how this continues to lift northward. And again, locations of this low will be very, very crucial, because all it takes is a location instead of here, somewhere in here, and you would be talking about quite a significant amount of snow. So I'm not sure yet what's going to happen with this Friday storm. But even still, the Euro is actually indicating more of an enhancement of snow behind this system locally into interior New England. Up to 8 inches of snow falling behind that storm, nevertheless, as it moves out. And the Euro actually shows more leftover snow showers really right through Christmas Eve and even through Christmas Day. And then here's our next system. And again, this system I'm very, very unconfident about at this particular point. Here is the Euro ensembles. And again, I mean, pretty much paints a very similar picture. There's our second system moving in. Again, not sure exactly what's going to happen at this particular point, but I will continue to monitor that situation. Now, here is that that storm around the 28th. There's several scenarios that could be painted here, and it will be changing. Trust me, as time moves on. But again, there's a system being shown, and then there's yet another system downstream that the Euro is indicating as well. So there's just so many systems right now. Definitely a very active pattern, and we will be getting snow with some of these. Not every single one, but we will be getting snow with these. Whether it's snow transitioning or whether it's rain transitioning over to snow or a mix transitioning over to snow, I'm not sure what's going to happen yet, but there will be snow with these. And eventually, we will be getting enough cooler air in here that these will not be creating the rain situations, especially once we start getting more snow on the ground. But at this particular point, that's what it's looking like. So for right now, that is my update. I will be giving you, hopefully I will be giving you some more updates as the week goes by. I hope to give you probably an update probably sometime either by midweek. I expect to give you an update, particularly on that end of the week storm. And then of course, we'll take it from there. So everyone have a great rest of your Monday, and I'll be back sometime later on in the week. Take care, everyone.